Using baby-led weaning to introduce your baby to solid foods, there's a few common pitfalls that I want you to avoid. So grab a mug of your favorite beverage and join me for today's Nutrition Coffee Chat. And while you're at it, click the subscription button below and the little notification bell so that you get everything you need to create healthy eating habits that stick, both for you and your family. Well, baby-led weaning, if you've been browsing around, getting ready to introduce your baby to solid foods, you've probably heard about this method. In a nutshell, it involves providing baby with finger foods right from the very start. And there are lots of positives associated with baby-led weaning. It encourages, for example, baby to be joining the family at the meal times, which is a wonderful habit to get started. It provides opportunity to learn the skills of eating, and it respects baby's hunger and fullness cues because they are doing self-feeding. So lots of great positives around it. However, there are some concerns that health professionals have for it. And these are the pitfalls that I want you to avoid. They can be easily avoided and still using baby-led weaning kind of dominant style of introducing solid foods. So 3 common pitfalls that I'm sharing with you today. The first is that at this about 6 months of age, we want to be introducing iron-rich foods. Iron is really important for baby's overall growth and development, particularly their cognitive development, their brain development. And yet breast milk is naturally low in iron. And so we want to be introducing iron-rich foods, ideally multiple times a day. And yet often when people are doing baby-led weaning, they're focusing on things like vegetables and fruits and grains like toasts and things like that, that naturally are low in iron. So absolutely you can do baby-led weaning, but you want to be offering iron-rich foods at least twice a day. And so some examples of iron-rich foods would be offering some firm tofu cut into strips, some omelet cut into strips. Eggs are a source of iron, tofu is a source of iron, or some kind of flatbreads or biscuits that are made with iron-rich flours. So things like perhaps an almond flour, or infant cereal can be used as an ingredient because it's iron fortified, or something like a chickpea flour, which is naturally going to have iron in there. So lots of natural iron-rich foods that can be used as ingredients in those kind of biscuits or flatbreads to boost the iron level of those finger foods. So that's the first pitfall. That's pretty easy to avoid. Just offer those iron-rich foods as your finger foods. A second pitfall that is a concern is that babies are just getting not enough food overall. And that's because, particularly if you're introducing solid foods at that earlier stage, that kind of 4 to 6 month window, babies, they arrive at every developmental stage within a window of time. And so some babies will be ready at about that 6 month time to have those motor skills to do the self-feeding, where other babies aren't going to have that right away. And it's going to take them a couple of months before they, have that developmental readiness to be doing the self-feeding. And so what I recommend is really doing that true responsive feeding, responding to your baby and their skills. And so for those babies who, don't have the motor skill kind of right away, is to do the finger foods as well, but also to offer some foods by puree too. I recommend, being true to your baby and responding to your baby's needs rather than sticking true to one kind of philosophy or another. Have your primary concern being your baby rather than, a certain philosophy. And, also eating, purees with utensils is also an important life skill to learn, right? For example, this morning before I joined you, I had breakfast and my breakfast was oatmeal, a puree. So I needed to know how to do that. And so doing some offering of purees as well as the finger foods, a bit of a mixed method, I think is fantastic. And here's the thing, that what you can do is still honor many of the principles of baby-led weaning, but with some purees being spoon-fed for baby. So one is to have baby join you at the meal times, where maybe you're having oatmeal and you're offering baby a pureed food. Do respond to your baby's hunger and fullness cues. Still respect that and the pace of your baby wanting to be fed. Remember, this is you helping your baby do the feeding by overcoming some of their physical limitations here, rather than you getting the food in. We don't want to be using offering purees by spoon feeding to be overriding your baby's hunger and fullness cues. We want to be honoring that, but still helping them out by offering, to spoon feed some. And then as they're kind of gaining those skills, you can offer the puree and the spoon and kind of load the spoon for them and leave it for them to be learning the self-feeding skill. So I'm a big fan of a blended method, which yes, isn't a strict baby-led weaning technique. However, it still can honor a lot of those overarching principles of baby-led weaning, because it is more than just finger foods alone. There are many aspects to that style of feeding babies. And then the third concern or pitfall that I want you to avoid is the concern around there being increased risk of choking with offering finger foods right away. Now, that does make some kind of logical sense that if we're offering finger foods right away, that there is increased risk of choking. However, in reviewing the scientific literature, what's been found so far is that there isn't an increased risk of choking around using the baby-led weaning method versus a puree method. But I still want you to take some good steps to be avoiding choking, because obviously choking is dangerous. We want to avoid that. So first step you can take is to never leave a baby alone who is feeding, right? Stick with baby so that, and minimize the distractions, keep the screens off, keep your phone away too, so that baby can focus on this new skill of theirs. They're not being distracted. And they're also learning by role modeling that you're eating and kind of keeping pace and keeping things kind of a pleasant opportunity. The second is to prepare those finger foods in a way that will minimize any choking if something does go down the airway. And so that is to prepare things either quite soft and mushy so that they won't be firm and blocking. So that could be offering foods that are naturally quite soft, like a ripe banana or ripe avocado that's already fairly squishy. Or steaming or cooking foods to a softer texture. So if you're going to do, say, a broccoli spear, make those, the leaves part of the tree of the broccoli and the stem quite soft, softer than probably we would eat ourselves, so that it really can mush and is not going to block an airway. Or prepare firmer foods in a smaller size so that they won't block that airway. I'm a big fan of preparing foods in long, skinny pieces, what I call skinny fingers, rather than like a cube, because a cube can block an airway more than a skinny finger can. And so a couple of examples that I've already shared here, those omelet strips or those firm tofu pieces. Instead of doing cubes that way, I would do them kind of long and skinny fingers, so babies can grasp them easier and feed themselves easier before they have this grasp, but also so that, it's less likely to go down and block an airway. And then the third technique, the third way to avoid or minimize that risk is to take an infant first aid class so that if your baby does happen to do some choking, you know how to respond and keep them safe. So those are the 3 common pitfalls or concerns around baby-led weaning, and now you have the techniques to avoid those. I will see you again next month. In the meantime, enjoy healthy eating, and I've got a couple of videos queued up here that you may want to check out.